Screencast, chapters 1, 2, and 3, part 9. We are beginning this section with iconography. Iconography is a story within a work of art. So a lot of times if you know a time, place, culture, symbolism, all of those things play into the iconography and let you know a little bit more about the artwork and the story and narrative it's trying to tell. So if we look at the artist Audrey Flack was a hyper-realistic artist. She once said, "People have a deep need to understand their world, and art clarifies reality for them." So this is a piece done by Audrey Flack called Marilyn. Who is Marilyn? It's Marilyn Monroe. So you can see different pictures of Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe propped up there, what looks like in a book, then the reflection of Marilyn Monroe in the mirror, and then the picture of two children, which would have been a young Marilyn Monroe. Now, Marilyn Monroe was actually born Norma Jean. So when we look at this, there's different aspects of different things that are going on here. So telling that story about Marilyn Monroe. Now, there are references to time running out. So you know that she died at a fairly young age. And when we look at this, what is it that you can see that shows time running out? Normally, the first thing people go to is that egg timer. That small little pink egg timer in the front. That shows a short passing of time. Then, of course, off to the right, there is a stop clock or a stopwatch. Showing a passage of time. Now the egg timer will eventually run out. The stopwatch will eventually wind down, or the battery will go dead. In the upper kind of right hand to the middle section, there is a month calendar up there that's showing a little bit longer passing of time. But there are other things here that are showing time passing that most times most people don't think about. When we think about the fruit will eventually rot and, decay away. You have the candle there. The lit candle is a symbol of a passing of time. It'll eventually burn out or blow out. A matter of fact, Elton John's Candle in the Wind song, we normally think of it dealing with the death of Princess Diana, but it was actually written for Marilyn Monroe. We also have the rosebud up there, which of course will wither and die away. There are other references to things here. We have references to vanity. So we have the makeup, the perfume. We have the paintbrush painting on the different face. You notice that the lipstick in the mirror is actually being applied to her lips. So there's other things that are happening there that are dealing with vanity. A rose in full bloom meant that she actually became a woman. If it was a bud, she would be like a young lady, not yet quite developed into a woman. The purple fabric is a sign of royalty. The color red is the color of passion. We know about her many affairs and lovers. So there's lots of things that are telling a story here instead of it just being a regular still life, and that is iconography. Now, Jan van Eyck was a Danish artist who did a painting, which you'll find on page 42, figure 230 of your text, called the Arnolfini Double Portrait. Now, this is one of the most famous works of art in Western art, and it is flooded with iconography. One thought is that this painting acted as a marriage certificate to record and legitimize their nuptials. Another is that it shows their engagement and their wealth. So here we see the painting, and you have the bride and the groom holding their hands, and he has his hand up in an oath-taking position. So this, of course, acting as that marriage certificate. Now, some things that, you might look at and go, I don't really see stuff that's telling me the story. Well, just their clothing, for one thing, tells a story because it shows their wealth. Her wearing green. Normally when brides get married today, the tradition normally has been to wear white. Why? Because that symbolizes purity and innocence. This particular time, what they're wanting to symbolize in the iconography B is green, the symbol of fertility. You might look at this and say she's pregnant. I would say she's not supposed to be pregnant. She's supposed to hold her dress up in the hopes of a future pregnancy. Although I know as well as you do, this is before the time of photography, and she would have probably had to sit for this particular painting several times, and therefore she may have necessarily gotten pregnant, and that might be the evolution of her growing belly. You see different things that show their wealth, the beads on the back wall, the fruit on the window ledge. One thing that's interesting is they are standing in their bedroom. Kind of a strange place. But when we think about the bedroom, in this particular time especially, this is where life begins. This is where marriage, the consummating of the marriage begins. And this is also where life ends. So the whole kind of circle of life thing happens in the bedroom. So we see his shoes in the foreground in the lower right hand or left hand corner, and then her shoes are in the middle, right between the two of them, in the middle of the room. So it's supposed to be symbolizing that, you know, he resides in the real world, she resides in the sheltered world of the home. Another thing is they have a statue on their post of their bed, which is supposed to be the patron saint of childbirth. Again, you're born in bed. So they've symbolized that with their iconography. They also have the chandelier above, which has one candle, which is lit, which is supposed to show Christ's presence in their marriage. The interesting thing, the little dog down here in the front, of course the dog may have been there. It may have been put in just because of the iconography of the meaning of a dog and fidelities, that faithfulness in the marriage. Now back in the very center, that round circle is also a mirror. And in that mirror, it shows the actual artist. Above the mirror, though, is a quote or a signature that is actually added that says Jan van Eyck was here 1434. Now let's look at that close-up of that mirror. So you see the back of the bride and the groom there, but you also see in blue is Jan van Eyck, and right behind him is a little red that is actually supposed to be his assistant. So showing those details. Okay, now installation. Installation art is a very interesting type of art. It is art that encompasses space. So you can become a part of the art. You can enter into the art. Very interesting. I would suggest that you take a look at the video link that is attached here. Now, when we look at installation, there are some installation artists that are famous, and Christo is one of them. Christo is an installation artist who does things in fabric. So this is the surrounded islands. So all of that pink is fabric that is wrapping around and going over the water and around those islands. This is Gates Wind, which was actually done in New York, in Manhattan, and it was a series of these orange flags that we see here. The one that I really am drawn to myself is Dale Chihuly. And here you see Dale Chihuly himself looking up at one of his blown glass chandeliers. Now here is kind of a small to medium sized chandelier. One of the things that I think is really interesting about glass blowing is that because of the material that is used, it is actually considered to be a craft. It is not a fine art, but he uses it in a fine art way. When I think of crafts, I don't think of something that's too overly expensive, but a small chandelier of Dale Chihuly starts at about $2.5 million. Now, here we see another installation of a Chihuly. A lot of his work is put outside. We don't usually think of glass and going outside, but the Botanical Gardens in St. Louis had a showing of his work probably about 15 years ago, I would say now. This is the ceiling of the Bellagio in Las Vegas, so a little bit different looking type of glass, but still again, Dale Chihuly installation. This is another installation, not Dale Chihuly's, a random artist that they have made the number 4 out of umbrellas, and you can see on the right side where it's kind of lit up at night from the inside. This is the exploding house, you know, something you can enter into, become a part of, another installation. This is an installation that is a opening between 2 buildings, and the artist has gone in and stacked up all of these wooden chairs that are actually screwed together, and very interesting. It looks like it would come crashing down on you, but it is all screwed together. It did not end up staying up for as long as what the artist, I'm sure, hoped for, just for the simple fact of it became a problem with rodents. Rodents got in there and nobody could get them out, so it became an issue. This is another installation that I think of that's more like what we might see of. I said before that you might have somebody in town, your hometown, who decorates for every holiday with these blow-up things. Those are kind of like those types of blow-up things, but projecting out of a building. So pretty interesting. Here's one that's just simply done with umbrellas hanging from a ceiling. Another installation. Now, artists are always trying to come up with concepts, and slipping works of art into your everyday life is a concept. This is a photograph of a bird in flight that was taken by a photographer and then bought by another person and installed throughout the city of New York. It was, I think, 20 some odd billboards this was installed in. And it really actually just looked like it was kind of like a tear on a white billboard. But what it is actually the showing of someone can purchase a concept in art. They don't necessarily have to be the creator of that art, but they can purchase that concept. Now, this is an installation that is really kind of along the lines of street art. This is from Banksy. And this is the Guantanamo prisoner at Disneyland. So Banksy is a street artist that is a name you should be familiar with, a current artist. No one knows his actual identity, but he does tend to do things that are very interesting. I know recently, I think last year, that one of his pieces went up for sale at Sotheby's. And as soon as the gavel went down and it was bought, the painting kind of shredded out from underneath the frame. It, of course, made the painting worth so much more money, but you bought a shredded painting. This is another street artist by the name of Shepard Fairey. Shepard Fairey created Obama's Hope. Other things he has created, but this is one of those that will be, I believe, go down in history, much like the Uncle Sam I Want You poster by James Montgomery Flagg. Shepard Fairey will always be remembered for Obama's Hope. Highly suggest you take a look at that video link and learn a little bit more about Shepard Fairey. Now, here's some of that slipping artwork in. We see it in coffee and lattes, you know, putting things in the images in the top. Here, I believe this was probably done with either cocoa or a stencil with some, a little torch kind of thing. Now, themes and purposes of art. When we talk about themes and purposes, there are categories, or what we might say genres. And religion is probably one of those top of the list genres when it comes to art. Art in the service of religion, it serves religion in 2 ways. We have things like Karnak and Luxor. Those are the 2 largest structures ever built in the service of religion. Now, we also have things like the Parthenon. You're used to the idea of the Parthenon. And then we also have the second service of religion is images of religious figures. What do angels look like? What does Christ look like? Those are artistic interpretations that have come from text, but it's definitely in that theme or category. So the next section we will pick up with pride and politics.